Login acceptance.
Hey everyone, welcome to the tech capital of the world. My name is Bobby Dave, CEO and founder of Foundry. And Kevin, I really like that music today. I don't think I've heard that beat before. That had me bounce in my head. You probably saw it in the preview when I was coming in.
That's the funny thing. People don't know this. Like, I can see like all the shots and everything, and I can see you there, but you can't see me.
Right.
So it's like one of those things where you're like, he's watching, but and you're just there.
Yeah, it's like that's
like
a good
subtle.
song, man. I like it. So all I can see is the countdown when it's coming up. So
you get to see the live feed. I get to see all the behind the scenes stuff too. So
yeah. So I have to tell you something. I put this out on Twitter earlier this morning, but I had this crazy dream last night. That you have those dreams that are like so vivid and real that you wake up and you're like, did that really happen? That happened to me last night. So I'm standing in a field and I'm at I don't know if people don't know this in North Carolina, there's this thing called the Dixie Classic Fair, and it's this thing that takes over these fairgrounds. And people are standing in this fairgrounds area trying to get in, and they would type a URL in on their phone, and it would transport them to the location they wanted to go. And so me and my wife were sitting there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is tech idea right there. It's going to be done only in Blazor. Only Blazor could do this, WebAssembly, obviously. And so I put the URL in, and then the URL goes rate limit exceeded, and then I woke up. And then I just assumed that my subconscious is telling me to lose weight, that's it just couldn't transport me.
Okay. That makes sense. The app wasn't going to work. Too heavy. This app doesn't support you.
It's not enough bandwidth between us and the location to get you over there. So
that's proper sci-fi there. That's like very
too many particles.
That's not near future. That's far future stuff you're talking about.
That's far future.
If ever. That's
it's true. You never really see overweight people on the transporter pad in Star Trek anyway. So maybe there's a weight limit.
Hey, maybe the tech on handle.
Yeah, it's
I don't know. That's funny. You see speaking of Twitter, and I haven't been on. I'm trying to go a little bit less on Twitter. I really don't
I think we have different reasons, but I noticed the other day that speaking of Twitter, it's number one, it's all about Elon anyway, and so but then I realized I was watching a movie the other day, and I realized I was checking Twitter or watching the movie, and I'm like, man, I am just on this too much. I'm just gonna start having a time in the morning and the evening to check it. I know that that's not what Twitter's designed to do.
No, I thought the same thing, but for in separate. We haven't talked about this at all.
Yeah,
I just thought the same thing. I was I thought I got to thinking if it went away, would I be bothered? And I'm like, you know what?
Oh, no, I don't think I would be.
And I'm I really wouldn't be. And I'm like, so why am I doing it?
Yeah, and we probably have different reasons. You more likely don't like Elon. I'm more sort of like him, but it's But if Twitter went away of all the social media apps, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'll probably get a lot more done now. I won't be looking at it.
Yeah. I'm just going to check it less. I'm not going to go off it or anything. I'm just going to use it less. That's all. I'm just going to check it less. Because you find you're scrolling, you have it in a desktop or whatever, it's easy to kind of scroll through, and it tends to be a time suck. You can get
I know, it's
rabbit
a time
holes,
suck.
And it's you can find interesting things on there. I'm not saying that it's not useful, but I'd rather kind of look at it on a like you say, a couple of days, a couple of times a day basis versus kind of it being always present.
Right. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, go ahead. The thing is, Elon announced that he's going to do a Twitter bot purge. He's doing this in real time. I don't know if you saw that tweet. It's last night. Yeah. He says the bot purge is ongoing. If you notice the drop in followers, that's because this is why. And I'm thinking, okay, I have 1,190 followers. I'm like, I'm about to lose
the bot purge.
1,190. I didn't lose a single one. And I'm like, part of me said, oh, that's great. Or part of me said, wow, bots don't even follow me. It's just
I don't know my exact follower count, what it was, but mine's the same too. I don't know if it's down to the exact one, but it's in the exact same ballpark. I didn't lose a single one, It's 1581. I think it's the same. I don't think I lost a single one. I think I was about the same.
And I don't I don't really understand Twitter because like on LinkedIn, people are constantly trying to connect to me on LinkedIn all the time.
Yeah.
And I get like 3 addition followers maybe a month. I mean, like, people don't. Yeah. It's not.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I was hoping, since I took her to get more followers, but it's just not the case. I'm not even important enough to be shadow banned. It's like I want to be. Can I get shadow banned or something? Maybe I'm a threat to somebody somewhere, but no, I'm not.
My problem on there is I talk about too many different things, and I understand that's
maybe what it is.
If you want to be like get a big following on one of these social media platforms, you got to like be very niche, and I'm not very niche. I'm talking about football, Formula One, virtual reality, coding. Like there's a million. I'm in all the arenas. I'm talking about all the stuff.
Right. I'm talking about the Raiders on Sunday, C# during the week.
Exactly. And people are like,
my dream I had last night. So.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we've got an interesting topic today, though. I do think we got a YouTube comment, and we thought it was so important that we would address it.
This is the comment.
Yeah, and we don't think this is a bad question. Just to let you know,
it's a great question. I think this is a great question.
Yeah, and I will say this: if you come into the live bootcamp here, the internal bootcamp here, I do interview every student that comes in, and this is a very common question. I get this almost every time. Right. So it's a question we answer quite a bit, and it says, "So, am I guaranteed to get a web developer job if I join the bootcamp?" And surprisingly, we say no. In fact, I responded to this on YouTube. And so if Raidu happens to be watching this, I think that's how you say it, Raidu? Is that the guy from Street Fighter?
Hopefully it's right. I think, no, that's Ryu. That's Ryu. That's Ryu. No, that's Ryu. All
right. But so we're bringing it out because we think it's an important question to answer, and not that we're making fun of you making this question. We think it's
it's a valid question. You should ask this question.
Yeah. Now I'm going to preface this as like saying that, if you're just here and say TL or TR too long didn't read, too long didn't watch, whatever. No, that we can't make it. We can't make a guarantee. There's a lot of reasons for that, but mostly is because at Coder Foundry here, we try to be a good actor in the space. We want to make sure that what we say we're going to do and what we do we're going to say, and those kind of things, just being that truth and honesty.
Right.
So like,
we don't want to put it out as like a sales thing, right? We don't want to say there's a guarantee and it's just a sales thing, because we will get to that and we'll talk about what
our guarantees,
other guarantees are and what they actually mean. Yeah.
Now, what I find funny about this, and this is what I find fascinating about the psychology and how this has been framed in the discussion, is that the guarantees are only attached to boot camps. And so in other words, like if you, there's 2 segments of our society when they come and talk to us. They're like, if you don't have a guarantee, you suck. If you offer a guarantee, you're a scam.
This is the catch-20 we see all the time, don't we? We see that's exactly that all the time. Yeah. And it's like, okay, it's lose-lose for us.
Yeah, no one can offer a guarantee, but we don't attach the same guarantee requirements to colleges or community college or even a self-paced course. So if you go out and take a Udemy course, there's not a guarantee for anything. I mean, whatsoever. I mean, like,
you spend some money on it. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Guarantee.
There's usually not even a money back guarantee.
No, I think Udemy has one, actually. I think they have a blanket one.
Yeah.
They have a blanket
you can just return it if within
but it's not like, yeah, exactly. I don't know what the time frame is or whatever, but yeah, and it's funny you say this too, like other places not having guarantees. There's zero guarantee for a college.
Right.
Nothing. In fact, if you look up the statistics, and I looked this up because I looked at it right before this because I'd seen it before and I thought it was an interesting stat. And it said that more than 50% of those who graduate from college, which by the way we'll talk about in a second too, more than 50% of those do not work in the field that they trained or got their degree in.
Agreed.
So if you go get a CS degree, more than 50% of people who go get that degree don't work in CS.
Right.
Like, so it's no guarantee at all.
Yeah. And so just to let you know, I do have a college degree. I went to University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and my degree is in risk management, finance, and insurance. That's what my finance degree is in.
Right. You're a little bit out of your field.
Yeah. Now, I did go to, it's kind of funny, and this is a funny story. I met Scott Hanselman once, at Microsoft, and we were at a bootcamp roundup. And at the time, this was early on in this industry, Microsoft was there, and there was a lot of who's who in the bootcamps, and we just happened to get invited to go to that thing. Yeah. And at the time, we were a young company. We felt like, wow, we're here, and there's like,
it was cool. We went to New York. It was a good trip.
Thinkful's here. That bootcamp was there. All of these people that we had, we'd met and like were there, and they're way bigger than us. And so they had this roundtable before the actual conference thing. I don't know if I've ever told this story before. And so all of the CEOs are just talking about bootcamp industry and stuff. And Scott Hanselman is doing this behind the scenes moderation thing like that. And Scott Hanselman comes out and goes, man, he says, how are you guys going against scams and stuff? I feel bad for all of those people that went to DeVry. He says, they just got scammed. And I raised my hand and I was in there like that. I went to DeVry.
It didn't work out bad for me.
Okay. I'm okay. I mean, I made it. I mean,
not everybody got scammed. That's the same thing with
right.
Everything.
Exactly.
It's not a scam.
Yeah.
Even we're going to talk about some guarantees that some other boot camps do have, and it's not that it's a scam. Right. It's not a scam. I think scam's almost like too much of it's a tough word for it. It's just it's an understanding of the rules.
Right.
And that's
what
really
your
what it comes down to.
Should be, and so here's what we tell students coming in. The question is, can I guarantee to get a job? I think is the wrong question.
Yeah.
The question you should be asking yourself.
Just to be fair, nobody can guarantee the job.
No one can, because we have no idea if you'll actually take an offer or anything like that. There's a lot of things that we'll go into here in a second. But I think what you want to know is, what do I have to do to get a web developer job is the better question. Like, realistically, hey man, just tell me. Like, I know that I can't just sign up for a course and get a job. Now, a lot of people do believe that.
They do think that. They think they can
buy
it.
We're a vending machine of jobs. You can buy a job by paying a boot camp, and then in return, you get a job.
Yeah. And when they when they pay their money and they don't get the job handed to them at the end, now it's a scam.
It's a scam at that point. And so what we try to do for every single student is set expectations on how do I get a job, and try to reframe what they're doing. The second thing is about this question, and I hope this doesn't come across negative, because it doesn't, because I want a lot of people, and if we're getting a lot of comments in here, I'll look, but I want
I'll put them up if we do.
Yeah. And if it's negative, go ahead and put them up, because I want to address all of these concerns that people might have. So one of the things that I think that you need to think about is, and this is what I tell every student is, hey, let's plan on what success looks like, which means getting a job. Let's plan on doing that, versus if this doesn't work for me, what are you going to give me my money back? It's like, okay, let's plan on how do we win versus what happens when I lose.
Right.
Not what if I lose, what happens when I lose? Because I think this is a question like that. It's like, say, when this doesn't work for me, what happens to me? And so and what I want to know is why do you think this isn't going to work for you? What is it that you're really, really, really worried about? And so, or do you think that there is a magic component to this, to where there's so many jobs out there, no matter what you do, if you just had the Coder Foundry stamp on it, you would get a job.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
It's not.
And that's what we actually, and this is what we crazy, Kevin, we tell people, when you put Coder Foundry on your resume, you can, in education or whatever you want to call it. But when you don't put it on the applications or your portfolio or anything like that, not that we're ashamed of Coder Foundry. What we're trying to get students to understand is hey, take credit for your work, the things that you do in the course, so that people will know that you're a coder, and they don't think that, oh, you just copy things at the boot camp and it's meaningless. And there's a lot of you haven't. We don't do that here.
We've had to put the work in. Get it. People are always why don't you give us the code? Well, we don't give you the code because we need you to code it.
Yeah, even in the self-paced course, very rarely are we handing out code, and we do get that comment quite a bit.
Yep.
Well, all these other courses give us GitHub repos, and we're like, we know.
Right.
So we want you to type it in, just physically type it in is part of the process of learning, versus getting it to compile by getting a GitHub repo down, syncing it, and then, hey, look, I've got a bug tracker. I don't think that works for the student. So there's that part of it too. So let's talk about the things that you have to do to get a job. And this is what I tell every student that comes in. Here's the things that are require for you to have access. Now, funny enough, if we go and look at guarantees for other boot camps,
which I did. I'll tell you, I did right before this. You want to go through some of the things that you have to do?
Some of them.
Because we can talk about because we can talk about some of like what these are. So firstly, I would say overall, and we talked about this a little bit, that none of these are job guarantees. You do not get a guarantee of a job at the end of any of these. What they are money back guarantees.
Money back guarantees.
So money back guarantees, not job guarantees. Nobody can ever guarantee you a job, because if you did, well, you just walk in there and say, they would give you, here's my $200,000 job working, and you'd say, nah. Like,
no,
and there you go.
I'm going to turn it down.
I'm going to turn it down.
Then I'm going to get my money back, and then I'm going to go take the job next.
Exactly. Exactly. There's too many things that are out of your control. So all it is a money back guarantee, but there are some hoops you have to jump through in a lot of these, and I just kind of looked through some of these. So there are, firstly, one of the big things is like a graduation requirement. So firstly, you have to graduate. So there's a minimum threshold for whatever graduation is at that school. We have graduation at our school. Not everybody completes our course.
They don't pass. And what we're talking about now is the in-person boot camp, the one that they come to and you're here 40 hours a week. There's an instructor with you 40 hours a week. That part of the boot camp. Self-paced is a little bit different model, a different thing. So like what we're talking about is our in-person boot camp at this point.
Right. Some also have an exam, a literal exam at the end. Right. So we don't do that, as it's more based on project work, but some places do. You have to pass the exam. Whatever that pass-fail is, you got to pass the exam. That's another point of failure. There's also code reviews at some as well. That's the way that we kind of lean versus exam.
Yeah.
So you've got to have produced the work, right?
Yeah.
To get our final sign-off for graduation, you have to show us your work, and you have to be able to talk about that work. That's how you graduate.
Right.
Okay, so some of the other things. You have to check in multiple times a week with a career counselor.
Yep.
Okay, you can see why that is, right? Because if somebody goes dark on you, which we've had, we've had students who just will ghost you. We have career counselor, and they will just literally never reply to you. Well, if you do that, how do you expect to get a job?
Yeah, exactly.
So I understand that. It makes sense. But you've put a hard check on it. They said 2 times a week, a lot of them were. Multiple times a week, whatever it was. You have to accept any job offer in the field. And this included, some of them were including like part-time. A lot of them include paid internships as well.
Right.
So part-time, full-time, paid internships, contracts. You had to have accepted any job.
Right.
What do you think about that one?
So here's what I think. I wrote a book on this, and the 5 steps to getting a job, and so like life-changing software career, 5 steps. I think that accepting the first offer is important.
Right.
Now, what we do that's different than what some of these bigger boot camps are doing, because they're trying to have the ability to say job guarantee on their website, which we don't do. We're not trying to do that.
Yep.
What I tell students is you need to take the first full-time offer that you get. All right. Now, what we do ahead of that is like, tell us your search radius ahead of time. So if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, and you want to stay in Atlanta, that's where our recruiters are going to look for you. We're not going to send you offers in, Greensboro or Austin, Texas, or somewhere out in California. We're going to stay in there. And so then when you get an offer, it's going to be within your search radius. So you define your search radius. And what we tell students all the time is like, the wider search radius, the more quicker you're going to find a job. That means we're looking in more cities. Now, what we will tell some students, hey, if you're in Bismarck, North Dakota, you might want to consider moving. And then we've had some that are in like really, really rural areas of the country that we say, we'll look for remote only, we'll try, but do you want us to send you things in other cities and see if we can negotiate like a move, maybe some move assistance and something like that with the company and that kind of stuff. So that's all of that goes into a personal job search for a student. Now, if you happen to live in a great town, and we'll tell you like, hey, if you live in Atlanta, you probably ain't gonna have to move. Probably gonna find some offers there. If you're in Austin, Texas, you're not gonna have to move. If you're in North Carolina, in Charlotte, Raleigh, or the Triad, probably not gonna have to move. But if you're willing to, we'll send you more opportunities, maybe somewhere that we find, so those are the kind of things that they go into.
And that's also one of these requirements too, by the way, was a lot of them have a distance to a major city, and they were generally within an hour of a major
and that's
metropolitan
reasonable
area.
in my opinion. That's reasonable in my opinion.
Or the willingness to move, like you mentioned.
Right. Yeah. And then does remote exist? 100% exists. But a lot of times that remote offer, a lot of students don't know this, the remote that's coming in is saying you need to be within driving distance of the office.
Yeah,
yes, you can work remote.
Same time zone.
But you need to be at East time zone and within 2 hours of the office in case we need you to come in for whatever reason. I think that's what you're seeing and you also see hybrid options and things like that. So all of those types of things go into it. Now, what we tell every student is, listen, let's say that you're living in your hometown and it's a small town and you love it. Mom, dad are there, grandma, you got a history in the town, like, in fact, the general store has your dad's name on it, like, and you don't want to move. And I get it. Yeah. But what I tell them is, like, can you move for 1 year? Could you take another job in another location for 1 year and then look for that pure remote job that you're looking for and then move back to hometown? And I think
because we all know it's way easier.
It's way easier the second time around. And so we always say, and this is why a lot of boot camps put this in their requirements, which we do not. I mean, like, hey, if you don't get a job under 40K in our SA agreements, you're not going to ever have to pay. There is no money to give back. You never pay us.
Right.
So I think that if you could take the first offer, you're on your road to getting 100K over the next 3 to 5 years, maybe not instantly out of the program. We think that's a little bit unrealistic. And so we set those expectations down to 60K, 50 to 60K. We think that's a really good expectation. It may be lower, maybe higher, but like, that's where you need to plan on if you're coming into CoderFoundry. And every student that has came through here, if you're in here watching, that I've taught to you, and that's what I've told you. It's like, it's in this range, what we think is the reasonable range for expectations. But you take the first offer you get. What we see is when you turn down the first offer because location's not right, money's not right, you don't feel right, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, is those people typically don't break in because they don't continue coding post bootcamp to get to the next offer stage, which could take 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months.
Sometimes it's the one and only shot, isn't it? And they miss it.
And then they don't continue to do the search like that. And I think that's the problem. So let's, before we start answering questions, let me tell you what our plan is to get you a job. And now I think my plan here is what the big boot camps are saying that offer the job guarantee. I think we're talking about the same thing. Right. And they know exactly what has to happen to get a job as we do. And I don't think we're anything special. So you don't have to come to CoderFoundry to get this. Now, what we do and design our program isn't around like what we think is necessary. So like what CoderFoundry does is we think the skills are like up in here. Twitter, Facebook, and everyone else thinks that the skills are down here. And we think there's a gap between that we try to overcome in our education part. So there's two parts to this. Number one is education. What am I learning and what am I building? That's at the bootcamp level. Like that's what we're building. Here we think .NET's the way to go. You could do it with JavaScript. You could do it with whatever. But we pick a stack and we build a thing and we go to market with those things. We think that having a portfolio is a must. If you come to CoderFoundry and you don't complete the work, it's really hard for us to find you a job. Like in other words,
you have no proof that you can do it.
The portfolio and the projects are twofold. Number one, to teach you how to code, but number two, give you something to show. So there's two goals with us building all the projects that we have. The other thing that's kind of like hidden in our program that a lot of students don't understand is if you go and you finish only one of the projects, say you only built a blog, you can still get a job, but when you go up against another CoderFoundry student, they're going to see right away, where's your bug tracker at? Where's this other thing at? Like, and you have tougher questions to answer. Now, so what we tell every student is, hey, you got to finish these projects. Now, what we do different than everyone else is like, we actually do the coaching part, which is like, hey, don't quit. Where are you at? What are you doing? Like, what's broken and hold them accountable on these things, looking at the project and going and give them a list back. Here's your bullet list. Here's your checklist. Go fix these 20 things. Let's get this stuff going. That's the coaching part. So there's education, coaching, and then there's direction at the end of it, which is like working with the recruiters. Like you've got a portfolio, you've got your education done. Now the recruiter says, would you take a job in Roswell, Georgia?
Right.
I've got an offer for you, or I've got an opportunity for you to interview. I should couch it that way. You still got to interview.
Yeah.
And if you say yes, and then you go out and interview and turn it down, it's really hard for us to place you because, like it's hard, So then we were like, we can't make it perfect all the time. And so, like, that's the thing that we do. I think was we tried to give you direction. Say, just take it for a year, take it for 2 years, do it for 3 years, do your tour of duty, and then build this career to where you really can dictate the pay, the location, the type of work that you want to do, all the things that web dev and software dev offers is true. It's just that it's probably in the second role or third role. It's not in the first role. First role, you got to take what you can get, what someone will pay you to do, and you do that. So lots of hard work in this, man. I mean, we see that.
Magic.
Yeah. So like if you, I put this in my beanstalk approach. There's the fable or the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. And he goes out and he gets 5 beans, and he ends up with the girlfriend and the gold in the end. And what people think is that, well, he did have 5 magic beans and he did grow a giant tree. But what people don't understand is you got to read the whole story. He had to climb the tree, kill the giant, steal the gold, and get the girl. There was some stuff he had to do. It wasn't just like beginning, end. There was a middle part there that happens in all great stories. And your story is no different. There is a beginning where you say, I'm going to sign up at, let's say, Foundry or some other boot camp or some other college. And then we skip all the way to the end and say, now I'm a web dev if I just do the act of signing up. And there's a lot of work in between those things that happens. And what we want to do is be honest with students and say, what do I need to do? First and foremost, the first step one is to build a portfolio with projects on it in a stack that matters. We have a little term around here. We say the stack matters what you build it in, because what we want to do is interview for roles that are using the stack that you built your stuff in. That helps, it does help, so if you go to a school and it's like they're building a stack and the stack doesn't matter as much as the other stack, that's going to hinder your job search, not make it impossible by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to hinder it. So if you're out there learning, I would say something like the PHP stack Laravel, there's less opportunities out there for that than there is for the .NET stack. Now, maybe if you're learning React, okay, those things, it's pretty relevant. But if you're learning Mongo and not a relational database, that could hurt you. And that's where I would say MERN stack isn't as popular as something that if you had a Postgres, a Pern stack, Postgres, React Node. I think that's more relevant of what's happening, what's going on. I still believe to this day that it's more beneficial to learn JavaScript and a server-side language like Java or C# over just JavaScript. But let's say you did that. Then interview for those types of roles and find those roles in your area, across the country, remote, whatever it is. Your number one job says, I need to get a offer in a town to make some money. Now, if you come back to your recruiter and say, I can't move because family dynamics, or, I've been divorced and my kid lives in this town and I can't leave this town because we have shared custody. Yep. Totally get all those situations.
They're often all valid reasons, but there's also a bunch of reasons that aren't really reasons too, right? It's like, I don't want to.
Someone told me the other day, I don't want to work in Charlotte. Why? I don't like Charlotte. Okay.
Okay, good reason. Great.
It's a city, man. It doesn't have it doesn't it's mean to you. I understand that, but it's
even if it was mean to you, just go work there. What are you talking about?
It's not a person, it's a place. So the city's not mean to you. But I understand what they're saying, like the traffic's bad or whatever. But what you're doing is when students say, I am going to break in no matter what, I am going to become a web developer, and I want this career so I can manage my own career. I can set my own destinations. I think if you go on that approach versus coming to a boot camp and say, hey, so what's my money back guarantee? Like, if this doesn't work out for me, can I get my money back?
Right. Because you're just setting yourself up for failure, aren't you? You really are. You some mentality.
Instead of what do I need to do to win? And I love students that come to me and say, Bobby, tell me what I need to do.
Exactly.
Tell me how I do this.
Because people win all the time. Most of our students
every
win.
time. Yeah, exactly. Most of them do.
So it's so you have to ask, what are they doing to win? And it's not chance. It's not luck.
Right.
It's none of that. It's work.
Yeah.
It's work and doing the right things. That's what it comes down to.
So I get this question, and this is kind of in this question right here, it's kind of insinuating that. What is the percentage of success rate that you have?
Yeah.
And I understand that question. I totally get it. I understand where they're coming from. What I'm trying to do is tell them, I want you to think about this. Let's say that I told you it was 70%. Which side of that equation do you think you're on?
Right. Right. Are you saying, you're telling me then statistically, I personally have a 70% chance of succeeding? No. That's just not true.
No, that's not what I'm saying. At all. What I want people to understand, so if you tell me, well, I think I'm in the 30% camp, I'm going to tell you not to become a coder.
Exactly. You're guaranteed to be in the 100% failure camp if you think you're in the 30.
Right, because it's your mentality of how you're approaching this. Like, in other words, like, and people know, people apply to Coder Foundry and they don't get in, and they get mad at me for not getting in.
They get mad at us all the time.
Right,
all the time.
In the interview process, I'm trying to figure out, A, are you committed to this? Do you have grit? And do you have the aptitude, the commitment level, and all these things to do what we need you to do in 12 weeks? So it is a little bit different. And this is a little known fact, we tell students this too, we dismiss people from the program and give them their money back. So there is a money back guarantee, because like in the first 3 to 4 weeks, if we think you can't do it, we just we have a conversation. It's a nice one, and say, we don't think this is right for you in this setting, in this quick setting. Because literally we've had people while we're lecturing playing Call of Duty, and we hear Call of Duty on they had to mute them. And
right.
Can't be here,
so
man.
Officially, we have a 2-week money back guarantee.
Yes, officially.
Unofficially, we've gone way past that. Plenty of times. Because again, we're not going to be that bad actor in the space that just like somebody's there for like 4 or 5 weeks, and then they're like, we at this point we don't think you can do it. We don't think you can see it out. And if we don't like let you go now, you're just going to end up owing us money, and you're never going to break in. And that's
right.
We don't want to do that.
Good. We don't want to do that. So our money back guarantee, it may be not exactly what you want.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Our job guarantee is a money back guarantee. You're right. No, that's true, and it's probably the one you don't want.
Life happens during a boot camp, and so life happens. You get things happen, all kinds of. We've been through every scenario that you can think of, working with people. And we let them come back maybe in another boot camp or something like that, because just horrific things happen to them and they just can't attend. But we do track attendance. So if you're not there for 5 days, we have the right to let you go. And so if you're not going to even attend class, how can we possibly get you a job? So those are the things that all go into our calculus. So let's talk about this. Let me get real specific about this. Number one thing that you want to do, if you want to get a web job, and you're going to, let's say you're going to a CS program, you have to have a portfolio of projects, I think. Now, there are very few CS programs that have such a weight that no matter what you do upon graduation, you're going to get a job. I think MIT,
exactly. MIT, there's probably a Harvard class of some kind that does it. Maybe
class, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. We're not talking about the online
ones.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe. But yeah, there's prestigious programs at some prestigious schools that carry weight. That you're right. They're just like they will see that you've completed that. They understand its rigorousness of that course and be like, that person clearly has it. We will hire that person.
But very few CS programs in the university level in the U.S. carry that prestige.
Yeah.
Just know that going in. So, and also I would say the same thing holds true for boot camps. Very few boot camps have the prestige where they say, oh, if you went to that boot camp, that's the real deal. Now at Coder Foundry, we try to set our part apart by being, we're the toughest boot camp in the country. And I still believe that objectively that we are. And we try to do that. But what we tell students is you don't need to like pastor CF all over your resumes and your projects and everything like that, because thinking that, okay, that's going to help me get in. It's not. What's going to help you get in is being able to talk about these projects that you built. And that's step 2. Step one, build them. Number 2, talk about them. So how do we do that in the bootcamp? How do we get you to talk about your projects on a daily basis? Pretty much, if you've been through here, your people know. We'll say, hey, tell me what that's doing. Tell me how that works. Then we have 80 questions that we give out that you need to be able to answer. And so those are interview type questions.
Yeah, because we know they're going to come up in an interview.
Yeah. And then my super secret method inside of Coder Foundry, this is the super secret sauce, for the noodle soup is, for example. So like if you answer an interview question, you need to say, for example, and relate that to a specific piece of code. So if I ask you what an interface is, you can say interface is something with, a class without implementation. It's got methods in it that don't have any implementation, no code in it. For example, I wrote an interface, and you tell them about the interface that you used and how you built the concrete class and how that worked in your app. That's what we train you to do, so that not only can you build it, now you can talk about it in concrete examples, and that is winning a technical interview. Third is being able to interview multiple times, accept rejection, and keep going regardless of the outcome.
Accepting rejection is tough, right? We see that a lot of people,
really hard.
They'll literally quit after one, because it's like because they feel like they've crescendo to this point, and we know especially when you do the 12-week boot camp, right? It's work. And then we ask you at the end of that, like, we understand you've done a lot of work, but we need you to keep working. We need you to keep applying and doing and going and going and going and going. And then the first rejection feels like, man, I've done all that work, and now it's like, I can't do this. And we've seen it. We've seen literally one rejection, and people quit.
Right. And so and then we see that, and then when you see people, hey, I got a job, and we're like congratulating them on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, people don't understand how much effort and time that took. They just see the end result. They look at the 5 magic beans and look at the end result. And so what I want for every student here, whether you go to CoderFoundry or not, is like, know what's reasonably possible. Now, if you build projects and you have projects and you can talk about them, and you'll look and look and look until you get a job, you're probably going to end up working in this industry. More than likely no. And so then the person that does that, I would put them in a higher percentage versus the other student that builds half the work, shows up half the time, and won't ever apply for a role. Then I would put you down at 5%. And we try to weed those out as much as we can so they don't end up owing us long-term ISA agreements or anything like that.
Yeah, because that's bad. It's lose all around.
For them. Lose for everybody. And so what I want you to do, and then we'll take some questions here, is I want to talk specifically about you guys is like, what are you willing to do to get a job? And did you know that it's that amount of work? And everybody in the industry is saying the same kind of things. I think CoderFoundry is the only people that are putting it down in like concrete bullet points. And if you don't do these things, it's probably going to be difficult. Now, I have seen students get employed 8 weeks into our program and leave early, and they just are special at interviewing.
Right. They're just going to get a job. They're just going to get a job no matter what.
Yes. And they're special at just interviewing. Now, how's your technical skills? Okay, if you quit halfway through, it's going to be lesser than another graduate. And then I've had some students that are like A+ up here on the technical, terrible at the interviewing, and it takes a lot of effort for them to build up those skills to be able to win. And it takes them like, why did it take me 6 months to find a job? You just got to overcome the nervousness, the introvertedness, those kind of things, and then finding the right job, right place, right time, and all those kind of things. But if you put all those students together, if you graduate the program, you build a bunch of projects, you can talk about them technically, and then you work well with the recruiter. That's great. Now, what other thing happens, man, is we get people all the way up to the interview process, and then they don't go to the interview because they're afraid of the rejection. Yeah. So they self-diagnose the rejection, and they're like, I don't know if I can do this, and they just don't show up to an interview.
Yeah, we've had plenty of no-shows, interviews.
No-shows. It's like, crazy. Come on, man. Like, you could do this. You could do it. And that's part of our third step, which is education, and then coaching, and then direction, which is like, you can do this. Like, here's the things that you need to be doing right now to do this. And so I think those 3 things are important for you to get a job. And it's not magic. I do think what we do is special because our work level is harder in our 12-week program. It goes the way up here.
Yeah.
Therefore, our students typically that graduate that can talk about them do really well.
But the students have to put in the work.
They put in the work. It's not about me necessarily, other than that the construction staff does show up every single day, and we're here every day for 8 hours a day, those kind of things, which a lot of boot camps don't do.
But that's our commitment to the.
That's our commitment.
That's our commitment to the program, right?
That's our two-way street that we agree with you. Say, hey, man, if you're here on a Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., our instructor's going to be there.
Yeah.
Now that's we can't say that's true about every other program. A lot of it is pre-recorded content, and it's more like a online class that you're paying in-person rates for. And I think that's kind of bad, but yeah, that's not our problem. So let's say that you did go to one of those programs, and what do you do now? Like, okay, Bobby, my education part sucked. What do I do now? Go to Foundry and sign for another ISA? No, you go to a self-paced course like we're doing, which is less expensive, build some projects, take our interview course, learn how to talk about them, and then work with a recruiter to get a job. Whether that's in-house at Coder Foundry in our case, or Tech Systems and all those other people, lots of recruiters out there. And then I think that's how you do it. All right.
Yep.
Cool. We got any questions? I saw a lot of them flying up.
There's a few. Let me just show this one here real quick, just to put this straight. So your super secret for example advice, we mean that by exactly that we give it, no one else does. That's what we mean by secret sauce. We don't want it. We don't have I'll say we don't have secret things that we don't tell you guys that we do. We'd rather just share them.
Yes.
That's kind of we'd rather just put them out there. So that's what we mean by secret. Not that we don't talk about it.
And the reason that I still say it's secret, even though I've told it a lot, I mean, it's just that people don't listen to it a lot. And then I do see pushback from other people in our industry and say, that would never work. That's not going to work at Fang. And to me, I'm like, okay, I've never technically interviewed at Amazon. I get it. I haven't had that experience. And I get it that there are some leak code questions that come out. So there may be a study process. But here's what I am saying. If you can get past that part and you're talking to the tech manager and say, hey, tell me about you. And there's always going to be an HR type interview, no matter where you go.
It's always a human
There's
part
no
to
way
process.
that they're saying, oh, you traverse about an tree? Hired. That's not what's happening. You still have to convince someone on the soft skill side that you're a good person, you're going to show up, you're going to do all these kind of things. But if you can win that over with talking about projects that you've built, you're going to perform better in interviews. Now, what I will say is 90% of interviews that our students go through are non-Fang interviews.
Right.
And it may be closer to 95%.
I can say it's easy.
Non-Fang.
Yeah.
So think about this. Let's say you had 10 interviews exiting a program like Coder Foundry, and one of them was at Amazon. The other 9 are going to be somewhere else. And I guarantee you that being able to talk about coding from your project level and doing, for example, that secret works.
Yep.
It may not work in a specialized interview at Amazon or Google.
And if you're going for that specialized interview at Amazon, buy the book that says, here's how to interview at Amazon, and follow the book. Because I get it, it's specialized.
Or talk to someone at Amazon on Twitter or whatever and say, what did you have to do? What's it like to do that? And then do that. But having a portfolio of projects is necessary, and being able to relate a abstract academic code trivia question to a concrete thing that you've done is our secret to interviewing. And it takes a lot of practice. And what we say is, for example, is your memory trigger to trigger you over to thinking about those things. I just did it today. And finally, yesterday, we gave a quiz out, 30, maybe even 20 questions. I had to go look. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but we gave a quiz out in the cohort.
Yeah.
And one of the guys wrote back, and if you're listening, awesome job, by the way. He says, what is an interface? And he says, an interface, well, I could bore you with the academic answer. For example, let me tell you about one I have. And I'm like, boom. That's what you do to win. They're fine, and so we're really doing the education part, that also the direction part too. Like, just keep talking about your code, talk about your code, make sure you're demoing. Our recruiters it's drilled in their brains. Ask them if they demoed. Until you demo and fail, I don't want to hear it. I want to hear you demo and win, but but I don't want to hear about the failure when you're saying, I didn't demo, they didn't ask me, I didn't try.
And that's normally the thing, they didn't ask me to.
Right.
It's like, they're not going to ask you to because they don't know that you can.
They don't expect it. They have no idea that you might do it. And you walk in there with hey, let's look at this thing together.
Yeah.
I think that wins. And that's our super secret advice that isn't so secret.
It's secret to all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Just us here.
Yeah. And here's what I will say. One final thing on that thought, Andy, is that people that win do this instinctively. They do this. They talk in terms of examples all the time in their walking around life. And when you meet these people, they're very compelling to talk to because they always have a real world example of how something works. You're like, man, that person's really smart. Like, why is that person really easy to talk to? And they're so engaging because they're talking about concrete examples. They take you there. Storytellers do this all the time. Like master storytellers transport you to a place from the place that you're in because they're telling you about this thing that they know really a lot about, and it's just compelling. And so I think all of that experience that I personally have, we try to pour into the program. So anyway, cool.
Okay, there's some other ones here. Just wanted to welcome Clara back. I guess she's been away. We haven't seen you.
Back on the coding train. All right.
So I like that. Hopefully you're still here. So that's cool. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Let's see. So Sean says 100% guarantees are scams. I said scams is kind of a hard word, but it depends on like how you think about it. Like the job guarantee part, the word job guarantee is the part that I find scammy. It's really a money back guarantee.
It's a money back guarantee.
But some of the things, when you start looking at like the hoops they're going to have you jump through, while some of them seem unreasonable, when you collectively look at them, if you don't do those things, then it's reasonable for them to have them because they're there because people will try and, again, be that person that's like, well, I'm just going to take this course and try and get my money back.
Yeah.
So it's protecting them against that is what it really does.
So let me tell you a little bit, and I probably shouldn't mention this, but like one of the things I look for in an interview, if you're trying to get into Coder Foundry, I'll ask you a question. I'm looking for this. So in our thing, we have an ISA program. So we probably would say 80%, maybe as high as 90% of our students come in on ISA programs, some pay cash. So an ISA comes in and they'll ask me a question and they'll say, so if I get a job and I make $39,900 for 10 years, will I owe you money? I'm like,
the answer is no.
No,
thank you for the question.
You can't come to Coder Foundry. And it's not because I want to get paid. It's just that your mentality is wrong. You're so worried about the ISA versus the things that I need to know. Is like, I want you to make 85, 95.
We want you to make $100,000 and just pay it off straight away and not even think about it.
That's what we want. I mean, so we're looking for people that say, I want a career in this, not how do I get the education for free.
Yeah.
So, and there's plenty of people that have done that. They'll report income in, it's $39,900, and we see it all the time, and it's like, why would you restrict your income level to not pay the ISA? I don't understand. Like, why don't we go for this and let's build a career that for a decade from now, you don't owe Coder Foundry anything, but you're making, north of 6 figures doing this. And like, and I don't even really want credit for that. Like, I mean, I want you to like look back and say, I did this. I want you to win.
Yeah. And
so we're looking for people that want to take this on as a career, not necessarily like, how do I game the ISA system, which is fine. But like, and it's true. If you make under 40, you're never going to pay us anything.
Right.
It's true.
But that's not
what we want for you.
Well, that shouldn't be your goal. If that's your goal, that's a problem. And we have literally had people report because they have to report to the ISA. You have to put in taxes and whatever. And they've literally reported $39,999. We're talking about $1 off, and it's like
$1 off.
That's not by chance, man. That's not like that's not literally correct. It's like, come on. That's like if that's your mentality, it's just a problem.
Bigger things for you, and like bigger.
We want you to make 6-figure salaries.
Yeah, and if you go to Coder Foundry, great. If you don't, great. I still tell you the same thing, that you need to build projects. You need to learn how to talk about them. You need to work exceptionally hard, and then interview and take every interview opportunity you get. Look wide so that you can just get that 1-year experience, and then you can dictate what you want. And that, I think ultimately when you look at these money back guarantees, they're all saying the same thing, that it takes a lot of effort on your part and our part too. We got to do our education part. We have to do that. We have to teach you how to code. Yep. And if we don't ever do that, we should give your money back if we don't do that.
It is a two-way promise, isn't it? It's like you're making the promises to do these things, but they're also, the bootcamp's making the promise to do things as well. It is definitely a contract. It's an agreement between the two of you.
And the one thing I can say, and this is me being about Coder Foundry, is like, if you see a bad review from us, you'll never see the thing where like some of the reviews is, I went to class and the instructor wasn't there. That's not going to ever see a review that's legitimate from Coder Foundry, because I can tell you that that's not what we do. We're there every single day, pushing you to the absolute limit that you can do in 12 weeks. We have really kind of like made it a lot of work, but that work we think turns into results. So it's like going to the gym, man. You got to lift weights. I mean, you just have to do it. You have to put your reps in. That's what we say all the time. It's just the way it is. If you don't think it's fun, maybe the job's not for you, because really working 40 or 50 hours a week in a coding job at a boot camp is no different than the actual real job that you'll have.
It's exactly. It's like a job simulation, isn't it, really?
It's like kind of how it is.
Okay, let's talk about this question. We kind of talked about this a little bit already, but I'll just bring it up anyway, just to put Isaac's name up in lights here. So he's trying to pivot from non-tech into Fang, web dev on the job, has 2 years C++ work experience. So should I leak code or should I have a portfolio of web projects? You kind of talked about this.
So if your goal is Fang, which is Facebook, Apple, Amazon,
I would also say
Netflix,
they're not
Google,
all the same either.
They're not all the same.
So you're going to interview differently at Microsoft or at Apple than you are at Netflix and Google. They all have their own little like intricacies, and you need to pick like which one are you going for, and just study that. That'd be my advice. And
so I wouldn't limit myself, Isaac, to Fang roles. I would look at roles in my area that I go to. And so having said that, leak code is great for answering interview questions. Some of it, I wouldn't spend 100% of my time doing that. I would make sure I have a portfolio of projects. And if I had to pick between the two, and you're like, I can only have enough time to do one or the other, then I'm absolutely saying build a portfolio of web projects, forget the Fang interviews, and find a job that is in your area that's not from one of these 5 companies. Play
the numbers, right?
Yes.
How many developer jobs are on at Fang? Way more than all.
Way more opportunities. Way more opportunities. You know, and notice that Microsoft isn't on there. And I don't even think Microsoft has a very non-Fang type interview process. I've talked to several people that have gotten in from boot camps from Coder Foundry that have worked at Fang, that have worked at Microsoft. So, and Microsoft has different mini companies inside of Microsoft where, you know, it's just different, you know, so
getting a job on Xbox is different than getting a job on Azure. Like they're very different processes.
So there's the Microsoft finance team that runs, they build internal tools for Microsoft that does all of their work, whether that's, they may interface with Azure and they may interface with Great Plains. You know, that technical work of the accounting department where they're building things is in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so like, that's a really big operation. There's also another one in Raleigh. And I can tell you that it's a traditional interview. It's not a leak code type interview.
It's on site. It's there. It's with somebody who's at that building. It's not a bunch of like leak code stuff. It's like, it's a very, we've had people go to those. They're very traditional interviews.
Yes.
You can show them your code.
And I can tell you this, and I hope he's not watching, but like we had a guy here that went, and that was his first job walking out of here. I couldn't believe it that they hired him, but he did follow us to the degree. One of the reasons I say I couldn't believe it was because he was the first one that went to Microsoft that got hired there. And then he was somewhere in the middle of the class. He wasn't up here at the top end where he's like aced everything. He was kind of middling through it, but learned how to talk about the code that he had, got hired with a portfolio and web projects, and he's still there today, which is great. He's carved out a nice career. And when he came in, people were asking, what did he do coming in? I bet he was a programmer coming in. He was washing cars. Detail. So it happens. And the thing is, what I'm talking about, had that gift. The gift is he could relate a question to concrete things really easily. He had the gift. I call it the gift of gab, the gift of small talk, the gift of conversationally. People are just gifted, and he was gifted that way. And so he could take lesser skill and convert that into a job easier than a higher skill person who doesn't have that. So you need to have those soft skills to be able to communicate effectively. And you can do that through practice. You absolutely can. So portfolio of web projects, I think, is more important. That's what I think. But you can spend some time on leak code too. You should know how to reverse an array. There's some really array type interview questions are very common. So anything in and around an array, finding an array, finding the max value in an array, finding the duplicates out of an array, reversing an array, those kind of things. Joining arrays together, you know, of the two arrays, can I find the same item between them? the intersections, those kind of things.
Because these are actually useful things too, that you're actually going to use, aren't they? These are things that you're actually probably going to end up programming at some point.
Yeah. And just to say that, I know this is a giant commercial for Coder Foundry, but like if you go to Learn That Coder Foundry, sign up for a free account, there is a JavaScript course in there, I think it's free, that has the most 11 common JavaScript coding style, leak code style questions. But you can definitely, there's more of those than I have on leak code, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel there.
Yep.
So,
this is ones that we've looked up.
But you definitely, if you want a web job, you've got to build a website. If you want a web dev job, it'd be very beneficial if you've actually built a web project before.
Yep. Okay, let's answer this question from Bree here. So it's a quick question on the self-paced course. Should I go with the .NET 5 stuff or the .NET 6 section?
So when we launched our course a couple of years ago, we put the whole thing in one course. Hindsight being 2020, we should have broke it out into sections. So currently right now, the .NET 5 course, you need to go through that. It's kind of your Bootstrap. It's going to have your JavaScript. It's kind of a lot more of it than just the .NET 5 things. Now with .NET 6, we do have newer .NET projects in there that you can go through, and one of those is Contact Pro. So I actually want you to do both. I mean, I want you to go through and build the address book, and then in .NET 5 we do have some other projects that don't exist in the .NET 6 section yet.
You definitely could still be working in .NET 5, right? This is still, it's not like it's absolutely. It's not like it's technology that's like suddenly wiped away and you're never going to get a job in it. No. It's still definitely out there. There's still a massive amount of jobs in it. It's
so, Bree, what I would say, if you have a portfolio and you've got the Bootstrap stuff done, you've got all the JavaScript stuff done, the 6 things you put on there, then go through learning .NET from some of the .NET 5 stuff, or you can flip over and just go directly to .NET 6 if you want. What you'll have is .NET 6, you'll have a Contact Pro at the end, and then you can come back to .NET 5 and do the bug tracker and do the blog. So as we update those, we'll continue to update the.
I think the benefit too of doing both is understanding the differences between both as well, because there really isn't as many as you would think.
Yeah, there's some configurations. There's a startup CS, a program CS. Those kind of things have joined together in .NET 6. So there's some changes, but like not a whole lot. There's plenty of people that have taken our stuff from .NET 5 and converted it to .NET 6.
Yeah, some here, I'm sure. We've chatted about it in Discord a bunch, and people have definitely been doing that. Doing it. So there's people that are doing that for sure. AC might have done something in .NET 6, if I remember rightly.
I'm sure he has.
I think it was somebody who said they'd done a .NET 5 project in .NET 6. So it's totally possible. It's just a little bit of research. It's not drastically different. Let me see.
Let's see if we can help someone with their job search. Anybody in there got a
job search question? Let me see. Other questions about the course. I don't see. I'm just going to do another course question here. Also, he says, I'm working through the self-paced bootcamp on the Bootstrap Labs now. Any tips on how to make sure I get the most out of the program? I'm enjoying it so far.
So the 2 things, I will say this. Let's talk about like not the most out of the program, but how do I get a job with it? Because what I always tell, reframe your question so you can think of it. I think the question is, I think that's what you're asking, but like you have to be able to talk about this. So, and specifically talking about the ASP.NET stuff when you get there. So very rarely are they going to ask you Bootstrap questions, but if you feel like you can't lay out a grid, if you could say, if I just said right now 4C, we'll just say 4C, happy smiley face guy. So like if I said, hey, can you make a 2-column grid layout with Bootstrap? And your answer is not without watching a video, then practice a little bit more.
And do it again.
That's all I would say. Do it again. Maybe you need to repeat it. So, and it doesn't mean that you can't ever look at a guide. It just means that, okay, I sort of know what that is. I know that's div class equals row and div class equals column to class equals column other div. I know that, and maybe you have to look up some syntax here and there, but you kind of know how it's going. I think then you're well on your way to learning this, and just practice will put it to memory. But in general, learning how to talk about things is great. So in the self-paced cast, we have a thing called the interview. The interview you need to watch after you go through the .NET things. And can you answer those questions? There's 100 of them in there. Can you answer the top 20?
Yep. And you will have built the things to be able to answer those questions too. Because you'll see we relate back to code, like you were talking about your for example thing from earlier. Right. You will have built the things to use for example.
Yeah, and if you can, you're good. If you can't, practice. Keep practicing and put those things in there, because I promise you, if you go to a .NET interview, those questions are going to be asked. So, all right.
Yep.
The other one is the JavaScript coding challenges. Can you do those? Do that after you've completed the program. They could come up in an interview. Can I do those?
Yep. Anthony wants to know, does Coder do recruiting for developers with a built portfolio? So somebody who's a non-Coder Foundry graduate, I guess.
We don't do that. We only really offer it for people that that are inside the program, because they've paid us a lot of money, and we want to hold them. We want to put them first. So
we do a different kind of recruiting. Like we'll do a job-based recruiting. Like a job will come to us and say, "Hey, do you have a developer for this?" And we'll recruit based on that.
And some of those are coming up. And if you're in our Discord channel, you may see that come up, and we'll say, "Hey, we're recruiting for this. Do you want to apply for it?" And then you would apply for it through us, and then we try to find opportunities for you. So some of it we do if we have a specific job. So you'll see that come out and say, "Hey, we're recruiting for this job. Here's the requirements. Does anyone match this?" And that'll come out on Discord, maybe on Twitter, but mostly in our Discord that we'll put it out there. So some of those are actually going to come out soon. If you're a .NET developer and you're looking, let me know. So,
this is the thing you were talking about yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's gonna be cool. Yeah, that's gonna be cool.
Yeah. 4 to 5 positions. So we're looking through those right now. Yep. Anyone else? Let's see what else.
I just want to say you're welcome, Isaac.
Thanks, Isaac. No problem, man.
Anytime. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Appreciate you being here.
I do hope, as you're looking up a question, I do hope that you guys realize that when I want to talk to you in terms of like what you need to do, and not necessarily promote CF at all costs. Like, I hope that you find value in, like, we're just telling you the straight deal. So like if you met me at a restaurant and we were just talking around about stuff, I would tell you the same kind of thing, like, and I do that quite a bit where people will just want to talk to me, I've done a Teams call with them, and it's the same thing that I'm going to tell you right now. Like, hey, you don't have to come to Coder Foundry. Here's what you need to do. It just so happens that Coder Foundry does these things as a program. I'm not going to apologize for that I've positioned the program, I built the program to match what employers look. That's what I do.
That's right. That's kind of the point.
That's the point, So like, that's why it changes quite a bit. Like internally is because, we're adjusting to things on the ground. We see, hey, what troubles did the last cohort run into? Is there anything that we could do on the education side to help that? And so, for example, we gave out a quiz this time around. So we haven't really given people a test before. And so now we now grade the quiz. We're grading them by hand. It's a lot of work, but it helps students understand what an interview is going to be like, so those kind of stuff.
Yep. Let's do a kind of a technical one here. With Blazor improving, does it make sense to focus on Angular?
Okay, if you're going to go for a front-end JavaScript framework and you're looking at a job right now today, Angular makes sense. If you're working right now, Mohammed, and you're already a dev and you already have a job, Blazor makes a lot of sense. But if you're trying to say, hey, I want a new job with a JavaScript framework, there's more Angular opportunities out there than it is for Blazor today, as I say this at the end of the year. Now, I believe that's going to change over the next 12 to 18 months, but I could be wrong. So what I always say is focus on what you can do today. What are the jobs today? What is it going to be today? And I can say, if you're looking at Angular jobs, that will be with a backend C# API more than likely. And so Angular, C# at Web API is a great stack to know going forward. And I do see a little bit of crack in the React people. They're saying, React's 10 years old. Like, should we look for something new? I've seen a lot of that lately. Yeah. The problem with React, the problem with JavaScript frameworks is they go in and out of favor and popularity, which I find that weird that people would say, I don't want to use React because it's 10 years old. Type mentality. I want to use the brand new one that no one's really built upon yet. I'm like, why would you do that? Like,
and it's only 10 years old in name too. That's we talked about this before. It's like it's not the same technology you're using 10 years ago.
Right. And so so I think that that's the only thing that I find weird about the JavaScript folks But you have to understand, man, this JavaScript stuff, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's necessary. It's the language of the web. It's the only one in the browser. WebAssembly is coming around, but right now it's the mainstream thing in the browser. Is that it's content creators that drive this. Content creators want new things to talk about. They don't want to talk about React. They want to talk about the next thing, which is literally called Next.js. But
I was going to say which came out last week. Or whatever,
yeah. So like, I find that funny that now we're moving from front end only to server-side components, and ASP.NET has been that way for 20 years, and it's still doing it that way, and it still works. Even with Blazor Server, we're rendering components on the server with Blazor, with a Blazor front end. I think that's still today, still the way people want to do this in bigger enterprise things. They want to render things on the server side, and ASP.NET still today makes a whole lot of sense. It's just that Twitter talks about React a lot for whatever reason. If React falls out of favor, does that mean no one's using React anymore? No, it means there's probably still a ton of React projects out there that people are using. But when the next version of whatever comes up and you have a 10-year-old React project and you're facing a rewrite anyway, it makes people start thinking like, okay, we got to rewrite this thing. What are we using? And React, I can see that in the community, isn't the default choice necessarily. Some are doing it, yes. Maybe the majority are doing it, but then people are like, hey, should I look at something else at this point? And, and I think that's where you can these things like Blazor, ASP.NET, and these kind of things are like, hey, man, you need to come over here and look at Web API. It's really robust. I mean, like, which has been that way for 20 years. So these things go up and down, but I would say to answer your question is today, right now, Angular is more popular than Blazor for sure.
I didn't tell you this actually. So over Thanksgiving, my brother-in-law, who is a .NET dev, recently just got a new job. I know you know him, right? So recently just got a new job, and we were talking about that. And it's like a small manufacturing place. He's the lead developer there, and he is rewriting all of their stuff, and he's using Blazor and Maui.
Yep.
So literally on the job right now, he's rewriting a whole new app, like in those technologies. Yep. So
I'm telling you, people, there's something to this stuff. And I know that when you look at Twitter and let's say Maui doesn't do this, this, and this, and this, understand it's like V1. Like they're putting it out, it still works. It's just that it's not there yet. And what you're not seeing is people are saying the same problems exist in Flutter, the same problems exist in React Native. I mean, like those same problems exist in all these platforms. It's a really tough nut to capture. But you can run a Blazor component that will run in a Maui mobile app, a Maui desktop app, and a Blazor website. And when you have a application that requires multiple UI front ends, that's pretty powerful. And typically you'll see that in manufacturing, logistic environments where part of the app's on the phone, some of it's on the desktop, some of it's on the website. They're not using the same thing everywhere, and Maui allows you, and Blazor allows you to do that. So Blazor hybrid that runs inside of Maui is kind of cool. And that's what that guy is doing.
And here's something else. Look, Jandri said, developers at work use Angular, but they are starting to push Blazor. So
yes, starting to, man. Like the reason is if people would just, if Microsoft would just advertise it. So we're building, if you want to know what's behind the scenes at Coder Foundry, in production right now, we're building out a Blazor course. So we're biased in this, but realistically, we built something in React a couple of months ago, and the developers have come to me like, wow, this is like, this is cool. Like, I know. It's like, he says, I feel like I'm cheating when I just declare this variable in the back end, and that variable is bound to the front end. And then if this thing changes anywhere, it automatically updates. I don't have to write a bind statement or write an asynchronous process to do it. It just works behind the scenes. And that's what people don't understand about Blazor. It's not about WebAssembly per se, and that is part of it, but it's also about the tooling and the framework that's around it.
Implementation, isn't it? Yeah.
It's just superior, man. It's just superior to when people start looking at the things they have to do to make Angular do what Angular does versus the things you have to do to make Blazor do what Blazor does. It's like, wow, okay. Cascading components, cascading parameters and components, things that get declared up here in the top of the chain can be passed down into instances. So we're using that for, say, authorization. So I get a class that has a user in it, and that's my logged in user. I can pass that down to any component real easily. yeah, you can do that stuff in React, but it's just harder. So state management is just so much easier to do in Blazor, so much more powerful. And that's why I think people are looking around 10 years into this, which is what I said 2 years ago when I said, is JavaScript dead? I don't think it's dead. It's always going to be there. But like when these rewrites come up, more and more people are going to pick Blazor because they're like, wow, I get the same kind of like two-way binding for my front end, no post back. Okay, I'm down. And it's object oriented and it's type safe. Yes. Okay, I'm down. And it's fast. Yes. So there's a lot to it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
But today, it's Angular. I mean, today, it's Angular is better.
Yeah. When I spoke to my brother-in-law, I was asking him about his job in general because I was like, hey, how's the new gig going? Asked him what he was doing and what kind of company it was. And like, I didn't even mention Blazor. And he's like, you know, I was like, oh, so what are you still building it in .NET? And he's like, yeah, and Blazor and Maui. And I was like, wow, okay. Like, that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's cool. And it's it's a smaller company, but it's like it's a brand new application they're putting. They're rewriting the whole thing. So it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. Cool. Okay. We're a little bit after, so let's let's roll out. Yeah. We'll be back again. We're back next week. Yeah, we're back next week, right?
Next week. Yeah.
We got a few more weeks. Then it's we will be off during the Christmas break for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But that's a few weeks away yet, right?
Yep.
Where are we? December 1st, aren't we? Wow, we're in December already.
Yeah, 1st December. So like, remember our giveaway? We crossed 91,000 subs. So remember, when 100,000 hits, we're going to give away that massive thing of
hoodies, laptop, and VR, and subscriptions, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So if you haven't done it, go up here. The link's also in the description.
I can tell you right now, this isn't the lottery. There's still there's not like
we're at
10
hundreds.
People in this.
Yeah, we're at hundreds.
There's a good chance someone's going to win this thing. Like it's someone we probably know because people we know signed up for it. It's probably my mom's in there and she's going to win the giveaway. So everyone's going to say, you just gave it away to your mom? I'm like, no, that's because she's the only one that signed up.
Exactly. Here's the deal. If your mom wins, we'll have to repull it. I don't know if you're
We'll have to repull it.
We'll have to repull it. We'll do some random number generator when we've got the final number at the end to decide who it's going to be. So
what we're saying is there's not a lot of large numbers in here yet. Yeah. It's pretty good. So sign up. We'd love to see someone win. And, we'd love to get us up to 100K. So if you can sub and like and all that kind of stuff.
That's our goal. That is our goal.
Yeah. Smash the like button. Yeah. So
which does help. Yeah. If you're here right now, hit the like button. Thank you for everybody for being here, for commenting, for interacting with us, for asking questions. We love being here and answering them. So it's always fun. If this wasn't fun, we wouldn't come back every Thursday.
No, we wouldn't do it. No,
we just wouldn't.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, we'll be back in next week.
See you guys. Keep coding.
We'll catch you guys later.